Hello and welcome to Newsfeed, your daily dose of what people are talking about online, from news stories to what's trending. Now, thousands of tons of Ukrainian grain bound for Yemen, East Africa, and beyond will get safe passage. The Black Sea Grain Initiative had stalled when Russia suspended its participation over the weekend. But now the agreement between Ukraine, Russia, Turkey, and the UN is back on after a phone call between Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin.
The United Nations had called this grain deal a beacon of hope during this conflict. Well, after a period of time of being quite dulled, it seems that beacon is shining once again. On Twitter, Amir M. Abdullah, the UN coordinator for the Black Sea grain deal, wrote, "I welcome the return of the Russian Federation to the implementation of the Black Sea Grain Initiative." He added that he was grateful for the Turkish facilitation. Now, we know that the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan held a phone conversation with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin on Tuesday to thrash out what Russia's concerns were and ensure that Russia returned to the deal. Also on Twitter, Ewan MacDonald, who's the editor-at-large of the New Voice Ukraine, wrote, "Tantrum over. The Kremlin has realised the best way to influence the grain deal is if it takes part in it. And there is absolutely no doubt that they will continue to take part now." Russia did have concerns, but the defence ministers of both Turkey and Russia managed to complete the negotiations and ensure that Russia has returned to the deal effective of Wednesday. Henry Foy, who's the Financial Times European diplomatic correspondent, tweeted, "Erdogan once again stating his credentials as the only potential deal maker in the Ukraine war." Turkey has really been the ultimate mediator in this conflict. It was the Turkish president who announced to the world on Wednesday that this grain deal was back on. It is such vital news because the world relies on Ukrainian grain. The World Food Programme says it fed 400 million people with Ukrainian grain in 2021. That's just a sign of how vitally important it is that this deal is afloat once again.
Meanwhile, Ukrainians are having to adapt to a new way of life with intense Russian bombing damaging energy infrastructure. In the capital, Kyiv, more than 500,000 people were without water and electricity earlier this week. Supply has been restored to some parts of the city. There were long queues as many braved the chilly weather to collect water. With winter around the corner, Ukrainians are bracing for the worst.
Russia's continued attacks on Ukrainian critical infrastructure have left thousands and thousands of people across the country in darkness. Places in Kiev City, in Zaporizhia, where we are right now, in Kharkiv, in Mykolaiv, in Odessa, and all around Ukraine, without water and electricity because of attacks on critical infrastructure like you're seeing behind me. People are buying candles, people are using generators, people are charging their mobile phones and making sure everything is plugged in while the electricity is on. Because now Kiev is saying that there are going to be some more forced cuts to electricity because of continued attacks on critical infrastructure. This hydroelectric power plant was actually attacked just a few days ago. Even though the damage wasn't major, officials say that if the dam is attacked and if power is cut off and people don't get the electricity they currently are getting that's produced by this hydroelectric power dam, over 1,500 megawatts of electricity, then that's going to leave tens of thousands of people in the region without power, and it's just getting colder now here in Ukraine. The winter is going to be very long as November starts. People are expecting the temperatures to start dropping, precipitation, snow, and rain. Some of that is going to be freezing rain, and that's going to be making life extremely difficult for people here in the country. And that's what they say is Russia's strategy to freeze Ukrainians through the winter.
Is Bibi making a comeback? Well, Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party and its far-right coalition allies are projected to win enough seats for a majority government. Although final results won't be in for a few more days, Netanyahu is already saying his coalition is on the brink of victory. This would lead to one of the most right-wing governments Israel has ever had. One likely coalition ally is far-right figure Itamar Ben-Gvir, who was convicted of incitement to racism and supporting a group deemed as terrorists by both Israel and the U.S. This Palestinian academic from Sydney University says Gvir's party, Otzma Yehudit, is so extreme that even the Zionist Federation of Australia and Australasian Union of Jewish Students have issued statements warning against it. Many shared this editorial from Israel's Haaretz newspaper saying Israel is now closing in on a right-wing religious authoritarian revolution. But others support the return of Netanyahu, like Avi Yemeni, saying that the former prime minister is the only decent option for Israel right now. More reaction from TikTok.
I, the Prime Minister of Israel, care more about Palestinians than their own leaders.
He was the longest-serving prime minister in Israel's history, serving a total of 15 years. The new prime minister still faces corruption charges, but it's likely that through new laws, he's going to be able to ameliorate them.
As that TikToker said, Netanyahu's corruption charges have not gone away. Now, he was charged with corruption, fraud, and breach of trust in 3 separate cases. The legal proceedings continue to limp along, and his supporters see him as the victim of a witch hunt. And some believe the graft charges are a liberal deep state conspiracy. And others, such as this netizen, say they're dismayed and that Israel has learned nothing from Netanyahu's past corruption. Another user draws parallels with other right-wing leaders, pointing out that what former U.S. President Donald Trump, Brazil's Jair Bolsonaro, and Netanyahu have in common are legal troubles for corruption and a litany of other crimes like bribery and fraud. Meanwhile, Israeli disinformation monitoring group Fake Reporter says it's flagged an unusually intense disinformation campaign over the past few days. Hundreds of fake accounts, mainly on Twitter, began sharing false info to discourage turnout and cause disruption and confusion. The New York Times reports that unnamed Israeli officials at the Shin Bet Security Service had warned the Justice Ministry about Iranian efforts to undermine the elections. I guess this sort of malign activity is now becoming the norm, although it may not have been so effective in Israel, though. Despite the very best efforts to discourage turnout and fears of voter fatigue, after all, it is Israel's 5th election in a mere 4 years. Voter turnout was the highest since 1999. Verified on Twitter? FYI, that blue tick will soon cost you $8 a month. The currently elusive and hard-to-get tick won't be as prestigious anymore since anyone will be able to buy it. Elon Musk announced the move to charge for the feature on, well, Twitter, of course. The platform's 400,000 blue tick accounts currently belong to high-profile figures like politicians, journalists, and celebrities. The blue checkmark verifies a user as a trustworthy source. Musk's plan to charge for the feature has come under heavy criticism. Critics say it could make it more difficult to identify reliable sources and disinformation. The change is part of Musk's raft of money-making measures to overhaul Twitter, which has not posted profit in 5 years. He wants to reduce Twitter's reliance on advertising. Currently, ads account for 90% of Twitter's annual revenue. Hours earlier, Musk justified his plans to charge for verification by tweeting that we need to pay the bill somehow. The billionaire was replying to this tweet by Stephen King. The famed author was commenting on reports about having to pay for the blue tick and used a word not suitable for TV to dismiss Musk's plan, saying he'll leave the site if Twitter starts charging, like many other celebs have since the Musk takeover. A poll by tech investor Jason Calacanis, a Musk ally who has been brought in to revamp Twitter, had an 80% response for the option wouldn't pay for a blue tick. So it's clear that the move hasn't really sat well with the Twitterverse.
Oh, look. Capitalist greed is at it once again. Millionaire flexing his money and then making people pay more money so he can stay rich.
Apparently there will be priority in replies, mentions in search, ability to post long-form video, audio, and half as many ads. Right now, I paid $2.99 for Twitter Blue. Can't we just increase all the features and keep the price? Power to the people.
I don't even know what to say because I'm just shocked. Like, if you're gonna fall for this, like for me, blue tick doesn't mean recognition. Like, you can be trash. A blue tick doesn't mean that you're automatically, like, I don't know, working hard.
News of the blue tick changes came after the world's richest man fired Twitter's board of directors, giving himself unfettered control of the tech giant. He's now the Twitter board's only member after finalizing his $44 billion takeover of the company last week. U.S. media reports that Musk could bring in high-profile allies to work with him at Twitter. After news broke that he dissolved the board in true Musk fashion, he posted this cryptic tweet saying, "This is just temporary." Netizens are divided on whether the shakeup is a good thing or not. This popular Twitter account is one of many suggesting that it's alarming that Musk is no longer accountable to anyone, even going so far as to call him the dictator of Twitter. And the reaction from TikTok has been just as divided.
Twitter's going through changes.
Elon Musk dissolves the Twitter board consisting of 9 members and now serves as the sole director. He is cleaning house.
Here's a feel-good story to start your day. Bye-bye, Twitter board of directors. We never liked you anyway.
Once you get your ass up to date, go out and look for a job. The word today is job. J-O-B. You hear me?
There's also been the question on whether Twitter, as a social media platform, will be able to maintain its independence and neutrality with Elon Musk at the helm. Minutes after Musk's takeover, the platform was alarmingly filled with hate speech and debunked conspiracy theories as conservatives tested the waters on whether Twitter's policies on misinformation were still being enforced. Musk says Twitter will continue to crack down on misinformation, and to emphasize just how important that is for the platform, announced that Twitter will form a content moderation council. Some analysts, though, are unsure the platform will be able to stay neutral.
Well, Elon Musk has controversially said things such as Twitter is too left-wing. He's even come out politically in favor of the Republicans. So there is a real question mark about whether or not Twitter can maintain its relative independence, its neutrality, effectively. He's also fired key executives, but although that's not uncommon when companies are taken over, among those key executives include the head of trust and policy, people very experienced people such as that, who have managed to keep Twitter on at least something of an even keel over the last few years, and that's concern. How he's going to square that with some of his public statements about taking off the reins and letting the bird free, etc., which is making advertisers nervous as well.
All right, on to what's trending. U.S. rapper Takeoff has been shot dead at a Houston bowling alley. The 28-year-old was part of the Grammy Award-nominated trio Migos. Police in the Texan city say they have few leads to identify the person who opened fire, killing Takeoff and wounding 2 others. The chief of police says they want to bring justice for the rapper's family and that Takeoff was well respected. Meanwhile, Migos' record label Quality Control posted a statement on Instagram calling what happened an act of senseless violence. The name Takeoff and condolence messages trended online after news of his death broke, and Takeoff fans are angry because people at the party at the bowling alley were recording the shooting instead of calling 911. Rest in peace, Takeoff. Now, our next story, it's that time of year you wordsmiths at home have been waiting for. Collins Dictionary has revealed its word of the year, and I'm going to be honest, I'd never heard of this word before. But here we are, and the word is permacrisis. The dictionary says, permacrisis sums up just how truly awful 2022 has been for so many people. But what does the word mean exactly? Well, it refers to an extended period of instability and insecurity, especially one resulting from a series of catastrophic events. Yikes, I guess it does sum up 2022 well. Well, in contrast, 2021's word of the year was NFT. Another Collins top 10 word from the annual list was quiet quitting. It's a new approach to work-life balance and has become increasingly popular. Quiet quitting refers to doing just one's basic duties or the bare minimum at work and no more, either by way of protest or to improve one's work-life balance. A recent Gallup survey found quiet quitters make up at least 50% of the U.S. workforce. Unsurprisingly, nearly all the other words are from this year's political terminology, like lawfare, warm banks, and sports washing, and of course, Partygate, the very gem we took away from Boris Johnson's chaotic term as UK PM. Now, most of these words may not find space for themselves in your usual vocabulary, but here's one that's found its way into mine. Vibe shift. It refers to a significant change in a prevailing cultural atmosphere or trend. And that's exactly what your Gen Z coworkers mean when they keep saying the vibes are off. Happy to report that the vibes aren't off today as we reach the end of our show. Do follow us on YouTube. Bye, and see you same time tomorrow.